My child, would you answer me? I am calling your name deep within your spirit, and I long for you to hear what is in my heart. I am not raising my voice to force your attention, and I am not speaking to command you. I am reaching for you because my heart has remained turned toward you through every season. I have stayed near, quietly watching and patiently waiting, even during the times you drifted away and believed you were walking alone. Now I am calling to you again, not with anger, but with a love that has carried this longing for far longer than you know. Pause for just a moment. Let the noise settle. Let everything else become still. These words are meant for a quiet place between you and me. I am speaking to you personally, with intention and with urgency. I am asking for only 90 seconds of your full attention. Compared to everything resting on this moment, 90 seconds is so small. Compared to how long I have waited for your heart to turn toward mine again, it is almost nothing. Yet those few moments matter more than you realize. I have waited through your confusion, through the days when you were too exhausted to lift your eyes, and through the nights when keeping yourself distracted felt easier than sitting quietly with what your heart was carrying. I remained close while you told yourself you would answer me another day, when life felt calmer, when your questions had settled, or when you finally felt ready. I waited because love knows how to be patient, but patience has never meant distance or indifference. Every moment I waited was filled with hope for you, not separation from you. Listen carefully now. I am speaking plainly because time matters. Moments matter. There are opportunities that come with a certain grace, and they are not experienced in exactly the same way forever. This is the final warning in this form, not because my love has reached its end, but because moments do. Seasons change. Open windows quietly close. I do not want you to miss what could still begin today. Hear me carefully. Silence is also a response. Choosing not to answer is still a choice. Looking away from this moment is still a decision. I say this to awaken your heart, not to burden it with shame, because understanding gives you the freedom to respond. You are not powerless here. You are being lovingly invited to answer, and heaven is watching this moment with quiet attention. Right now, heaven is still. Heaven is listening. Heaven is leaning close because something deeply meaningful is unfolding between you and me. This is happening now, not someday. This is your moment. It is not ordinary, and it is not random. It carries weight because it carries a choice, and that choice matters. I know fear is trying to rise within you. Perhaps you are afraid of what answering me could change. Perhaps you fear disappointment, or you are afraid to hope again after being hurt. Let me gently lift that fear from your heart. I am not asking you to promise me everything today. I am not asking you to repair your entire life in 90 seconds. I am simply asking you to acknowledge me, to turn your heart toward mine, and to whisper, even if only within yourself, I am listening. My love for you has never faded. It has never grown weary. I am here because you matter deeply to me. I see where a life of continued silence can lead, and I love you too much to let this moment pass without offering you one more clear invitation. If you continue to ignore this call, something within you will begin to change, not because I will leave you, but because unanswered moments become patterns, and patterns quietly shape the heart. Please understand, my heart. I am not threatening you. I am loving you honestly. Love sometimes speaks in whispers. Love sometimes waits with remarkable patience. And sometimes love must look into your heart and gently say, "Answer me now." It is never to control you. It is always to protect what can still be preserved. I ask for these 90 seconds because a single moment of wholehearted attention can begin to change the direction of your life. One honest response can become the place where healing begins, where your heart starts to soften again, and where what has been waiting quietly can finally move forward. You do not need perfect words, and you do not need a flawless heart. You only need a willing one. This is not about appearances, performance, labels, or religious effort. Set all of those things aside for a moment. This is about relationship. It is about no longer carrying burdens that were never meant to rest on your shoulders while pretending you are fine. It is about allowing me to see the places you have tried so hard to hide, even though I have always seen them with love. Please answer me. I have waited through every season of your life. I waited while you were simply trying to survive. I waited through the days you buried your pain, through the quiet questions you never spoke aloud, and through the nights you felt surrounded by people yet deeply alone. I was never far away. I remained beside you, waiting for this moment when you would finally become still enough to hear my voice again. This is your moment, not because every burden will suddenly disappear, but because this is where change can begin. The ache you have carried does not have to remain forever. The weight pressing on your heart can begin to lift. Clarity can slowly return. But it all begins with one simple response. If you'd like, I can continue with the next section in the same style and maintain consistent tone, pacing, paragraph structure, and word count requirements. Answer me now. Give me just 90 seconds. Stay here with me. Listen without rushing away. Let this moment become everything it was meant to be, because so much can still change when your heart chooses to answer. My child, I want you to understand how long I have been waiting for you. My waiting has never been impatient. I have never stood over your life, counting your failures or growing weary of you. I have waited with the kind of patience that only love can carry. I have remained close through every season you have lived. I was there when you could no longer sense my presence. I was there on the days you felt completely alone, and in the moments you wondered if I had quietly moved on. I never did. I stayed. I waited beside you when your faith felt uncertain, and when you no longer knew what you truly believed. I remained near as your prayers became fewer, softer, or disappeared altogether, and I watched as life grew so heavy that staying busy felt easier than slowing down long enough to feel what was inside your heart. Your silence never caused me to step away, and your distractions never made me turn my face from you. I stayed close, listening with patience, holding that place in my heart, until the day you would be ready to answer me again. If this message speaks to your heart, type Amen. I'm walking into my God-given destiny if He's leading my every step. There were many moments when I could have interrupted your life with overwhelming clarity. I could have shaken everything around you until you had no choice but to look toward me. But love that forces surrender is no longer love. I honor the freedom I placed within you, even when watching you struggle alone has grieved my heart. I waited quietly because I wanted your answer to come freely. I never wanted it to grow out of fear or pressure, but from a heart that genuinely desired to respond. I saw the questions you kept hidden because speaking them aloud felt too difficult. I watched you grow weary while convincing yourself that you only needed to keep pushing a little longer. I saw you become skilled at surviving without finding rest, at coping without receiving healing, and at carrying burdens your heart was never created to hold. Still, I waited. There were quiet moments when you sensed a gentle stirring within you, a thought that lingered a little longer than usual, or a whisper you dismissed before it had time to settle. That was me speaking softly because gentleness was all your heart could bear at that time. I did not speak with greater force because you were still growing. You were still becoming who you needed to become, and there were truths that would have felt too heavy before their proper season. So I continued waiting, protecting you even from what you were not yet ready to carry. Waiting is never easy when love is real. It is painful to watch someone you love struggle beneath burdens they were never meant to carry. It grieves the heart to see them believe they are alone while you are standing beside them the entire time. I watched you blame yourself for wounds that were never yours to own. I saw the exhaustion behind your smile, the loneliness hidden beneath your strength, and the quiet ache of feeling unseen. Through all of it, I remained. I stayed faithful when your faith seemed uncertain. I stayed present when you felt distant. I remained gentle when you were hardest on yourself. My faithfulness has never depended on whether you recognized me. It has never rested on how perfectly you responded. I have been faithful in the quiet seasons, faithful through the waiting, and faithful during the times you believed nothing was changing. You may think that because so much time has passed, the opportunity has disappeared as well. But understand this, waiting has never meant forgetting you. Waiting has never meant losing interest. Waiting has never meant my love became weaker. While you thought I was simply waiting, I was guarding you, redirecting your steps, softening consequences where I could, and keeping certain doors from closing before your heart was ready to walk through them. There were seasons when you chose constant activity instead of stillness. It was not because you stopped caring. It was because being still felt too painful. I never punished you for that. I understood the place your heart was in. You were doing what you knew how to do just to make it through another day. So I waited until surviving alone would no longer satisfy the deeper longing inside you, until your heart began reaching for something more lasting, more honest, and more real. During the seasons when you believed I had fallen silent, I was never absent. I was patient. Silence feels empty, but patience is filled with purpose. Every moment I waited was shaping you in ways you could not yet see. I was strengthening your heart, preparing you quietly, and using even your delays to deepen your understanding. Your detours were never meaningless, and your journey has never been wasted. You may still wonder why I did not intervene sooner, or why I allowed certain struggles to remain for so long. Hear me gently. Some lessons unfold only through time. Some understanding arrives only after experience. Some healing begins when you finally realize you were never meant to carry everything by yourself. I never abandoned you so that you would learn. I remained beside you while you learned. My love has never forced its way into your life. I knock, I wait, I return again and again because your willing yes matters deeply to me. Relationship has always included the freedom to choose, and even when you did not answer, I never stopped waiting. There were nights when you lay awake with an emptiness you could not explain. There were moments when you stared into the darkness sensing something was missing without knowing what it was. I was there through every one of those moments, quietly waiting, not accusing, not demanding, but hoping for the day your heart would finally turn toward mine. I have remained faithful through every season of silence, faithful when you spoke to me, and faithful when you could not find the words, faithful when trust came easily, and faithful when doubt seemed louder, faithful when you felt close, and faithful when you believed I was far away. My faithfulness has never risen or fallen with your attention because it flows from who I am. If you would like to support sharing messages like this, you can use the support link or QR code provided in the description. Now you are here. Now you are listening. This is why I waited. Not so I could remind you that I was right, but so I could tell you that I am still here. I still love you. I am still ready to walk beside you and carry what you no longer have to carry alone. Do not mistake my waiting for absence. See it for what it has always been: patience, love that refused to leave, and faithfulness that remained through every silent season. I waited because you were worth waiting for. I am still here today, still ready, still willing, and still prepared to meet you exactly where you are so we can walk forward together. My child, there were moments when you chose silence. I do not bring them before you to accuse you or to reopen old wounds. I speak of them so you can look back on your story with honesty wrapped in gentleness. I remember those moments clearly, not as failures but as places where fear, weariness, and uncertainty spoke more loudly than trust. I was with you through every one of them, even when your heart turned away. There were times when I gently stirred something inside you, and for a brief moment you felt it. A quiet thought lingered longer than expected. A gentle uneasiness settled over something that no longer belonged in your life. A sense arose that it was time to pause, to speak, to leave, or to begin something new. You noticed those moments. You wrestled with them. You questioned what they meant. Then you chose silence. You convinced yourself it was nothing important. You wondered if you were simply overthinking, and you told yourself you would listen another day. It was never because you stopped caring. Waiting simply felt safer than responding. Responding felt like stepping into change, and change asked more of your heart than you believed you could give. Silence felt familiar. It gave you the feeling that you were still in control, so you kept putting the moment aside. You found reasons that sounded wise and responsible. You told yourself the timing was wrong, that life was too complicated, or that you needed more certainty before taking another step. Those reasons were not false. They were shields your heart had learned to carry. They protected you from uncertainty, but they also kept you standing still. I heard every quiet promise you made to yourself. Later, when life settles down, later when I feel stronger, later when I understand more. You never truly told me no. More often, you whispered, "Not yet." I honored that choice, even though I knew it was costing you peace. Hear my heart without shame. I have never been angry with you for those moments, and I have never looked at you with disappointment. What I felt was sorrow because I could see how heavy your heart already was, and I knew how much lighter it could have become if you had answered sooner. I watched you carry questions that were never meant to rest on your shoulders alone. Silence matters, my child, not because it offends me, but because of what it quietly shapes inside you. Each time you ignore what your heart senses, even in small ways, it begins to form a pattern. It learns to postpone what is true. It grows accustomed to setting aside what once felt important. This rarely happens all at once. It happens slowly, almost unnoticed. That is how avoidance works. It does not demand your attention. It quietly whispers, "There will be another time," until delaying becomes easier than responding. Every time you postpone, the next response feels a little more difficult. Clarity seems farther away, not because I have stepped back, but because your heart gradually becomes less sensitive to my voice. The heart always adapts to what it practices. A heart that keeps listening becomes more attentive. A heart that keeps avoiding grows quieter inside. I know you never intended to ignore me. You were exhausted. You were overwhelmed. You'd carried so much for so long that silence sometimes felt like the only place where you could keep everything from falling apart. So you remained quiet. You stayed busy. You filled your days because slowing down felt heavier than continuing to move. I understood why. Yet your silence also kept you from the comfort I longed to give you. It kept you from the rest your soul desperately needed. It left empty spaces where fear, worry, and harsh thoughts about yourself slowly began to speak louder than my truth. There were moments when your heart wanted to cry out, but the words never came. There were moments when you needed help, yet you convinced yourself you had to carry everything alone. There were moments when you longed for direction, but feared where obedience might lead. Silence seemed like protection, but over time it became another burden to carry. I do not remind you of these moments so you will live with regret, because regret without hope only deepens the wound. I remind you so understanding can bring freedom. When you recognize what silence has been doing, you no longer have to keep repeating it. Even while you remained silent, I remained near. I never withdrew my presence. I continued waiting. I continued protecting you where I could, softening consequences and keeping you from paths that would have wounded you more deeply. My compassion never stopped flowing simply because you had not answered yet. Yet there were things that remained delayed, not because I withheld them from you, but because some doors only open when your heart chooses to respond. There is a difference between quietness and avoidance. Quietness can be filled with trust. Avoidance quietly says, "I am afraid to look." Fear grows strongest in places that remain hidden from the light. When those fears stay buried, they slowly influence your choices, diminish your courage, and shake your life without you realizing it. That is why your silence matters. Your heart was created to live in truth. I know what you were afraid of. You feared losing control. You feared disappointment. You feared that listening to me might require change, and change already felt exhausting. So you remained where life felt familiar, even when familiar had become painfully heavy. But my child, silence has carried a cost as well. It has stolen moments of peace. It has clouded your clarity. It has left you carrying burdens longer than you needed to. I do not tell you this to place blame upon you. I tell you because I want you to understand why I am speaking with such clarity today. Silence has shaped your heart long enough. It does not have to shape the rest of your story. You are not condemned because of yesterday's silence. Today you are being invited to answer. One sincere response can begin to loosen patterns that have held you for years. One moment of openness can awaken a sensitivity you thought had been lost. It is still possible. I am not here to relive your past. I am here to meet you in your present. I am speaking because your heart is still able to hear me. It is still tender enough to respond. Do not let yesterday keep you from answering today. I am not counting how many times you waited. I am inviting you into relationship. Let the sadness you feel draw you closer instead of pushing you into shame. Let honesty take the place of avoidance. Let your heart answer where silence once remained. I am still here. I am still listening. I am still waiting, not with disappointment but with hope, because your story is still being written, and silence will not have the final word. If these words reflect the place where your heart finds refuge, say, Amen. Jesus is my refuge and strength, my child, this is the final warning in this form. I want you to hear those words carefully, without allowing fear to speak louder than my voice. Final does not mean I am abandoning you. It does not mean my love is coming to an end. It does not mean I will disappear if your response is imperfect. My love does not expire, and my presence does not fade away. What changes are moments, not my mercy. What closes are windows, not my heart. There are seasons in every life, and within those seasons there are moments of unusual clarity. Seasons unfold slowly. They stretch across time as growth quietly takes place, and understanding deepens through experience. Windows are different. They are brief moments when your heart sees more clearly, hears more deeply, and recognizes what might have been overlooked before. This moment is one of those windows. Grace remains constant because grace is part of who I am. Yet moments like this do not remain open forever. They pass, not because I close them in anger, but because time continues moving and hearts gradually become shaped by what they repeatedly choose. While a window is open, responding feels lighter and clearer. When that window passes, the same response often feels heavier than it once did. That is why I am speaking with such honesty now. I am not trying to frighten you. I want you to recognize where you are standing. Right now, you are standing in a moment where answering me will ask less of your heart than it may ask later. If you'd like, I can continue with the next section in exactly the same style, so the entire script reads as one seamless, natural message. Right now, your heart is still open enough to receive these words. You can still feel their weight without closing yourself off. You can still sense urgency without being overcome by fear. That will not always remain the same. When I say this is the final warning in this form, I mean I will not continue calling you in the same way, with this same clarity, this same tenderness, and this same openness within your heart. It is never because my care for you grows less. It is because the heart slowly adjusts to whatever it repeatedly chooses to ignore. And even the strongest invitation loses its impact when it is endlessly postponed. I want you to hear me today, the kindness lay behind these words. If I continued speaking with the same urgency over and over again, you would begin believing there would always be another opportunity just like this one. Little by little, that belief would teach your heart to delay again and again until postponement became its own quiet prison. Grace would still remain, I would still stay near you, and I would continue leading you wherever you welcomed me. Yet something inside you would begin to change. The response that feels gentle today would require greater courage tomorrow, because habits are already being formed in the choices you make now. That is why I am asking you to answer while the door is still open. Doors rarely close with loud sounds. More often they close so quietly that you hardly notice until one day you realize something has changed within you. The urgency you once felt has faded. Your heart no longer responds with the same sensitivity. What once stirred you deeply now seems distant, and you wonder why faith feels heavier than it once did, or why clarity seems so difficult to find. It is not because I have moved away from you. It is because the moment quietly passed. I do not tell you this to fill your heart with regret. I tell you because I want you to recognize the gift that is still before you. Opportunity often feels weighty before it feels precious, yet it remains a gift. Today your heart is still tender enough to respond. Your awareness is still awake, and you are still able to hear my voice. Responding while this door is open does not require perfect understanding. It does not require lifelong promises or instant transformation. It simply means choosing honesty instead of avoidance, choosing to acknowledge me instead of continuing to drift. That is why I call this the final warning in this form. This invitation depends upon a heart that is still willing to listen. It depends upon a spirit that can still recognize the importance of this moment without becoming hardened. I see that openness in you even now. I see that these words still reach your heart. I know you are still able to answer, and that is why I am speaking today instead of waiting for another time. I want you to feel the weight of these words without confusing weight with fear. Weight does not always mean danger. Sometimes it simply means something precious is resting in your hands. Some moments quietly shape the direction of your life more than others, and this is one of them. Not because every part of your future depends on a single decision, but because what begins today, or what continues to be delayed, will be influenced by how you respond. I am not standing over you with a clock waiting for you to fail. I am standing beside you, gently pointing toward an open door while it is still easy to walk through. That is what love does. That is what patient care looks like when it becomes clear and honest. If you choose not to answer today, I will not leave you. I will not stop speaking, but I will not continue knocking in exactly the same way. My voice will become quieter, more subtle, and easier to overlook, not because I have withdrawn, but because your attention will have grown accustomed to moving past it. I want something better for you than a life shaped by constant delay. I want your path to become lighter, and I want your growth to come through willing response instead of repeated struggle. That is why I speak with both tenderness and clarity. Do not let the word final fill you with fear. Let it bring your focus back to what truly matters. Allow this moment to draw you closer, rather than cause you to step away. You are not being threatened. You are being entrusted with a choice. The door is open now, though it will not remain open forever in the same way. Answering me does not require perfection. It simply asks for your presence. Stay here with me. Listen. Let your heart answer while it can still recognize this invitation. My child, I want to speak honestly about what your silence has quietly been costing you. I do not say these things to accuse you or weigh you down with guilt. I say them because I want you to see what has been slipping away while you waited, postponed, and kept telling yourself there would always be another day. This is not about punishment. It is about consequence, and there is a loving difference between the two. Consequences often arrive quietly. They rarely announce themselves. They slowly take what was meant to strengthen you until one day you notice that something inside feels different. You rarely wake up and realize your peace has disappeared all at once. Instead, you simply notice yourself feeling a little more restless than before. Clarity does not vanish overnight. Decisions simply become harder. Your thoughts become heavier. Weariness settles in little by little. That is how delay works. It rarely overwhelms you in a single moment. It slowly drains the strength that was meant to sustain you. Your silence has cost you peace, not the kind that depends on comfortable circumstances, but the deep steadiness that comes from walking in step with me. There were moments when rest was close enough to receive. Relief was within reach. Yet silence kept you moving when your soul needed to be still. It kept you carrying what could have been released. Peace remained nearby, like an unopened gift resting in your hands while you hurried past it. Your silence has also affected your clarity. Clear understanding grows where honesty is welcomed. Each time you delayed listening or responding, unanswered thoughts continued multiplying inside you. Questions accumulated without resolution. What once seemed clear became uncertain, and you began doubting what your heart had once recognized. You believed you were simply confused when much of that confusion grew, because you stopped bringing those places honestly before me. Silence gave confusion room to settle where clarity had patiently been waiting. Another quiet loss was your sensitivity. Your sensitivity to my voice. Your sensitivity to your own heart. Your sensitivity to recognizing when something was no longer aligned with truth. There was a time when even the smallest whisper caught your attention. You noticed gentle convictions quickly. You recognized when something needed your care. Yet repeated silence slowly taught your heart to lower the volume. What once felt urgent became distant. What once deeply moved you barely seemed to stir your heart anymore. This never happened because you became faithless or because I stopped speaking. It happened because the heart always grows in the direction of what it repeatedly practices. Hear me gently. You did not lose your sensitivity because I withdrew my voice. You lost it because listening was postponed too many times. Sensitivity grows each time your heart responds. It slowly weakens each time avoidance becomes your habit. If you'd like, I can continue with the next section in the same style so the entire script remains seamless from beginning to end. When your heart loses its sensitivity, the greatest cost is rarely a dramatic collapse. More often, it is repetition. You find yourself walking through the same patterns again and again. The same weariness returns. The same questions linger without answers. The same hopes rise for a moment, only to be quietly set aside once more. It begins to feel as though you are standing in the same place no matter how much effort you make. That is not because you are incapable of moving forward. It is because silence keeps leading you back to where you began. When a response is delayed, the The lessons that could have been learned gently often return another way. When awareness is postponed, growth takes longer than it was ever meant to. Hear me carefully, this is not punishment. Punishment is something imposed. Consequences simply unfold over time. I do not punish you because you are silent, but silence carries its own weight. What is left unattended rarely disappears. It waits quietly until it asks for your attention again, often with greater urgency than before. I know how tired you have become. I have seen the quiet promises you made to yourself, only to wonder later why nothing seemed to change. I watched you grow weary of the same cycles, familiar enough to recognize yet heavy enough to drain your strength. Silence has kept you walking in circles instead of stepping into new ground. It was never because you lacked the ability to grow. Growth has always required one simple thing: a willing response. There were moments when everything could have shifted through something as small as an honest prayer, a pause, or the courage to sit with what your heart was truly feeling. Those moments passed quietly, not because I took them away, but because your silence carried you beyond them. Each one added a little more weight to the journey you were already carrying. I am telling you these things to bring understanding, not to overwhelm you. Understanding breaks patterns. Shame only keeps repeating them. You do not need to punish yourself for yesterday's silence. You only need to recognize it so it no longer continues shaping tomorrow. There is freedom in seeing clearly, because once your heart sees the path that has been walking, it can choose another one. Your silence has also cost you ease. Life has often felt heavier than it needed to be, not because you were on the wrong path, but because you continued carrying burdens that could have been placed into my hands. You held on to questions that were waiting for honest conversation. You carried confusion that was waiting to be brought into the light. You became strong through endurance. Yet strength without rest slowly becomes weariness. I watched you push through days when peace was within reach. I watched you become accustomed to carrying weight that was never meant to feel normal. I heard the quiet thought in your heart that whispered, "Maybe this is simply how life will always be." But my child, it does not have to remain this way. Consequences are never the same as condemnation. They simply reveal where your heart needs care. The heaviness you feel is not proof that you have failed. It is simply revealing that something is asking to be healed, and healing is still possible. Silence may have stolen peace, clarity, sensitivity, and the momentum you longed for, but it has never taken your future. It has never taken my love for you. It has never taken away the possibility of restoration. Those gifts have remained near you all along, waiting to be received through your response. I am showing you these things today so the quiet losses no longer continue unnoticed. Awareness begins restoring what silence slowly weakened. One honest answer can begin to bring peace back into your heart. One quiet moment of listening can make what once seemed clouded become clear again. One decision to stop avoiding what you already know can awaken the sensitivity you thought had been lost. As you hear these words, sadness may rise within you. Let it be the kind of sadness that draws you closer rather than pushes you away. Let it become the gentle realization that says, "I understand now," instead of the heavy voice that says, "I have failed." Clear sight is where healing begins. I am not keeping a record of everything you lost, and I am not measuring your life by what could have been. My attention is on what can still be restored. If this message has spoken to your heart, write Amen. I trust you completely, Lord, and if surrendering your life to Him brings you peace, share this video with someone who may need this encouragement today. If you'd like, I can also help ensure all rewritten sections flow seamlessly as one continuous script with a consistent voice and pacing.